Scientific notation is a shorthand way of writing numbers with a real big or real small absolute value. Scientific notation consists of two parts. The first part is a number whose absolute value is greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. For example, we could have the number 5.23. Notice there is only one digit to the left of the decimal. The second part of the scientific notation consists of a power of 10. Here are some examples of numbers written in standard form and in scientific notation. I like to think of the numbers that have a big absolute value as being universe numbers. Like if we have 23 million here, that would maybe be a number that we would be using when we're studying the universe, right? These are numbers that scientists use when they study the distance between stars. These numbers are going to have an exponent that is positive. I like to think of numbers that are close to 0, in other words, whose absolute value is very small, as being microscope numbers. These are the type of numbers that you would use if you're looking at the width of something under a microscope, like say the width of a bacterium or a virus. Notice the exponent on these numbers are negative. Don't get negative exponents confused with negative numbers. Notice that you can have a negative number and have a positive exponent. I've plotted these four numbers on a number line. You can see that my number line is not exactly to scale, but what I want you to see is that the numbers that are to the right of 0 are always going to have the first part of the scientific notation being positive. Like right here I have positive 5.6, positive 2.3. If I'm to the left of 0, I have a negative up front of the number. Notice that I have a positive exponent on each end of my number line. The numbers that are close to 0 both have negative exponents. In the first part of this assignment, we are going to write each of the following numbers in scientific notation, and we're going to be using a calculator to do that. Your calculator may be different than mine, but it still should have pretty much the same process. We're going to click on this button that says Mode. You're going to want to scroll to the right to be sure that SCI is highlighted. That stands for scientific notation. Notice that right now it's just flashing. Normal is still highlighted. We need to press Enter to be sure that we select scientific notation. Now that the highlight is off of normal and just SCI is highlighted, press second mode to quit and get back to your home screen. Enter your number into the calculator. Once you press enter, then you will get this on your screen. This means 8.2 times 10 to the third power. So that's your answer, 8.2 times 10 to the third power. Notice there is just one digit to the left of the decimal. Now I'm going to enter negative 68,000 into the calculator. Your negative button is down toward the bottom of the calculator. Press enter and you get negative 6.8 times 10 to the fourth power. It's always a good idea to kind of know what number to expect from your calculator just to be sure that you didn't enter it in incorrectly. You know that the absolute value of this number is positive 68,000. That's a big number. It's what I call a universe number. So I know I should have a positive exponent, and I do. Let me give you a minute to pause the video and try problem number 3 on your own. And there is your answer. Problem number 4. Notice that this number is really close to 0. This is what I consider a microscope number. I know that my answer is going to have a negative exponent. Enter the number into the calculator, press enter, and you can see that my answer is 7.4 times 10 to the negative 5th power. Let me give you a minute to pause the video and try problems 5 and 6. And there are your answers. One thing I'd like to point out to you is that this exponent is not necessarily the number of zeros that you have. You see, on problem 6, I have 6 zeros toward the end of my number, but my exponent is 8. Another way to think of this is how many places you would have to move your decimal point in order to place this decimal point, where you would only have one digit to the left of the decimal in order for your number to be in scientific notation. On these next problems, we are taking numbers that are in scientific notation and writing them in standard notation. So I have to be sure that my calculator is now in the right mode. So be sure that you have normal highlighted and selected. And we can do second, quit, and get us back to our home screen. We're going to enter 2.3 times 10 squared into the calculator. Press enter, and we have our answer. Now let's try problem 8. And there is my answer. Notice for problem 9, my calculator is not able to write this number in standard form. It's because it has too many digits. So I have to be able to know how to put this number in standard form without my calculator. The first thing that I like to do is to figure out what type of number that I have. Do I have a universe number that's going to have a whole lot of zeros toward the end of the number? Or do I have one of those microscope numbers that are really close to 0, where I'm going to have a lot of zeros up front of my number? And because I have a negative exponent, I know that I'm going to have zeros up in front of my number. So the first thing I'm going to do is to write down 2.01, and I'm just going to ignore the negative just for a minute. I know that I'm going to have zeros up in front of this number, so I'm going to put some zeros in here. I want to move this decimal 5 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. So my answer is going to be negative 0.0000201. Make that decimal a little bit bigger. I'd like for you to try problem 10 on your own. So pause the video, do that, and then come back and check your answer. And there is your answer. I'd like to do one more example without the calculator. First of all, you notice that this number has a positive exponent. That means that I'm dealing with what I call one of those universe numbers. So I know that I'm going to have a bunch of zeros toward the right of my number. I'm going to start off by writing down 4.27 and then putting in a bunch of zeros here. I'm not sure how many I need. I may not have enough. I may need to add more, or I may have too many, so I need to take some away. But I'm going to start by just adding a bunch of zeros. I need to take this decimal and move it 5 places. I know that I need to move it this many places, however many places that exponent is telling me to. I need to move this decimal 5 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right in between those two numbers. So my final answer is 4,270,000.